Today is January 9th, 2023. Over. It means more than. Thanks. What's next? This has been a slow week for the Pirates, and this is our episode number 100 on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and at. My name is Josh, and I am joined, as always, by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
How we doing?
We're doing all right. How's your internet? You got your red lines again.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. I love it. I think we're
what's
doing
going on tonight.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right. You seem like you're sticking with it here. If you fade out, then we'll adjust. But kind of a slow week this week, right?
Oh, super slow.
Yeah, I mean, this was we had two pieces of news as far as the Pirates go, and that's it. And then, of course, a bunch of confusion over the fact that people can't read these days. That's maybe too harsh, but just overlooking some things. I still think that it was overlooked on purpose. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get through tonight's episode as much as we want to. We're just not going to be able to get through this thing without talking about Bryan Reynolds again. We're going to save it for later. But this is never going to stop. It's going to be every off season until this thing happens. Or until there's a deal done, until there's some sort of resolution. It's going to be every week. It's going to be every day. This is just the way it goes. We're going to just not focus on it as if it's breaking news, because it's not anymore.
Right.
It's not breaking news. None of this is. Oh, boy. Great start. Hey, football's crazy. Real quick, I know we don't talk a lot about this, and every time we do, I say we don't talk a lot about it. Football's crazy. The playoffs are about to happen, so everybody's favorite teams are all in limbo and doing this and that and all the other. So I'm sure that's on a lot of people's focus, and that's fine. You know, this is not prime baseball time right now. But, you know, just to say, we had similar thoughts in our prayers with Damar Hamlin, and glad to see that situation on the up. That was a scary moment. And Monday Night Football, so we were all watching, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so pretty crazy, but, Pitt guy, grew up in Pittsburgh. I feel like even though this is a baseball pod and a Pirates pod, this felt like it was like, I don't want to go without saying something. So that was nuts. I've never seen anything like that. But anyway, this is a baseball pod, and so we're going to go ahead and take it around the league. I don't really, I haven't prepared. I haven't really read through this stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the timer anyway, because I feel like it's been a little bit of a meme listening to me always go past. One of these days I'm going to make you do it and see if you can get through it. But here we go. Hang on one second. Let's stop that timer because I turned the volume down to fade out the music. And here we go. Mets are frustrated with Carlos Correa. No kidding. The Twins are back in the bidding game. The Dodgers officially DFA'd Trevor Bauer. Don't get any ideas, Pirate fans. Do not go there. It sounds like the Dodgers wanted him to show remorse, and there is zero chill from his side. Nationals signed Dominic Smith for 1 year, $2 million. Nationals signed Michael Chavis to a minor league deal. The Brewers signed Wade Miley 1 year, $4.5 million. Red Sox extend Rafi Devers for 10 years, $313.5 million. Hosmer and the Cubs are in an agreement with a contract. Phillies signed Craig Kimbrell for $10 million. Mariners, AJ Pollock for $7 million. The Phillies get Gregory Soto in a trade. Cody Clemens also coming for 3 guys. I'm not going to go through those. More former Pirates moving around. The Rockies claim Nick Mears from the Rangers. Blue Jays claim Junior Fernandez from the Yankees. Braves outright Hoy Park. Orioles claim Lewin Diaz for the second time this offseason. What a busy offseason that guy's had.
Yeah.
So got through the timer. Actually slowed down my last line because I knew I had it. There's one more line, but I didn't want it to go into the quick shot. So as we go around the league, there are a couple things here, now that they've all been said, that I think are worth addressing. One of them is just former Pirates. Michael Chavis. This is one of the things that we're trying to communicate here. And maybe this is going to go further into this pod when we talk about some things later, but Michael Chavis signs with the Nationals. It's a minor league contract
on a team who's really struggling to get players, like to have players to play at the major league level.
Minor leagues. Nick Mears bouncing around from a couple teams now. Junior Fernandez bouncing around. Waiver claims here, waiver claims there. Hoy Park's offseason has been bizarre. The Braves, he didn't even get claimed this time. The Braves outrighted him. Now, my guess, Hoy Park probably declines that. You know what I'm saying? He probably says no thanks and goes into free agency. Maybe he finds his way back to Korea. Maybe he finds another team who's willing to sign him on a minor league deal. I don't know why you wouldn't just go with the Braves. You know what I mean? I don't know what.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what the deal is there, but the Orioles claim Lewin Diaz for the second time, and I know he hasn't played for the Pirates, but it's just the fact that like we claimed him and then we let him go. He went to the Orioles, then he went to somewhere, then he went to the Braves, and then back to the Orioles. And I mean, it's just kind of all over the place. He's been everywhere. The Lewin Diaz piece, this is just part of it. This is part of the offseason. We've talked about this a couple times on this show. The Pirates are going to claim guys on waivers, and then they're probably going to let them go, and then they're probably going to claim somebody. Until we get to spring training, those waiver claims, I'm not really too nervous about them because you just never know what they're trying to do.
Right.
And in this case, Lewin Diaz, that was just a standard procedure waiver claim, just like it's been for all the other teams. I mean, we said this, that the Braves were teams that were picking these guys up.
Right.
So this is just sort of, standard operating procedure for offseason. You try to fill that roster up, and you know that if you find your way into something better, then that's fine. So it's just been a wild offseason for him. I hope he clicks somewhere just because of that, because I feel like that'd be a cool story, not because I have any kind of fandom or anything. I just think that'd be funny. And then last on Around the League, which I didn't mention here because this just broke before we hit record on here, and I thought it was kind of deserving of its own thing. Liam Hendriks, diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he put up a post and all that stuff that his treatment starts tomorrow. So prayers going out to Liam Hendriks. Seems like that's a pretty like they have a treatment thing that, this is something that people get through. Not that it's easy by any means, but what I'm saying is like there's a lot of hope there. You know what I mean? That he can beat this. So that's what we're gonna be praying for, and best of luck to him. Always in that situation. Always very scary. You just never know what direction that's going to go. So
you never want to hear that word.
No, you don't. I'm sure it's one of those surreal things that you never think you're going to hear it until you do. And then, anybody who hasn't, it's hard to fathom. But prayers going out to Liam Hendriks. Man, it'd be awesome to see him pitch again. You know what I mean? That'd be great.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into Pirates news here. We're about 10 minutes in. This is, I don't want to move this show too quickly because things are dead. But we are going to move. We're going to keep moving. The Brewers acquire Bryce Wilson. We talked last week that he was DFA'd. This has turned out to be the Brewers in a trade for cash. And I think, for those of us who maybe don't understand the process, which is a confusing process, and it's understandable. This is them trading, basically just paying for him before the Pirates put him into the waiver piece of things. So the Brewers could have just put in a bid in waivers once it got to that process. But the reason that you go in and do the trade before that process either starts or finishes, I'm not 100% sure on that. But you basically overpay to say, no, we want to make sure we get him.
Sure.
So it's kind of like if a waiver claim costs $50,000, then they probably give him $100,000. You know what I mean? Like it's not like we got a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
But basically, that's what this would be: is them saying like, well, here's $100,000, so you don't do that, and you'll always take it because if they get claimed on waivers, you only get $50,000.
Right.
So kind of like a Rule 5 type thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll pay this much to get him. So whatever those numbers are, I don't actually know. Maybe our friend Ethan knows and will tweet out to us and clear the air on that, because I know he knows.
Yeah, for sure.
But a little bit interested in this. It's not going to be a lot. Like, he's obviously not one of those players who we're going to DFA and we're going to trade for a player. Like Lucas Luetge, who just got traded to the Braves, they got a player in return for him. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah,
it's not that. It's literally just, I'll give you more than what it would take to get him through waivers. Mm-hmm. So it's not, my first reaction was, I can't believe somebody gave us something for him, but they would have, you know what I mean? Basically, they didn't give up much more than they would have just by putting a regular claim in. So essentially,
and I think taking a chance on a guy like Bryce Wilson isn't a terrible idea. I think he ran his course through our system. He obviously ran his course through the Braves system, but I think he's got some untapped potential, and I think there's something there, and it might click somewhere else. Was it going to click here if we kept a hold of him? Probably not.
Even so if it does click,
if it does click, don't go start labeling this as, of course the Pirates get rid of him and then he blows up. Well, sometimes that happens. Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, and with him being only 24, it is very possible. My fear, and the thing that I think I said last week too, is if it clicks when he's 28. Like, we would have had to hold on to him for 4 years anyway, and we're hoping anyway that we're not in that place right now.
Right.
So if he had minor league options, this would be a totally different story.
Right.
He would have been sent down last year to figure things out. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So I just think that's this is still a good move for the Pirates, but who knows? I mean, the Brewers have some good pitching there too. And that's something that when he was here with the Pirates, we didn't have. If he goes and talks to Corbin Burns and oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Help me out.
I'm drawing a blank too.
Woodward or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
If Woodruff.
My goodness. Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah. So anyway, if he goes and he talks to those two guys and something clicks there, if the splitter starts to work for him that he started throwing here, if that's something that he can develop, that's still fine. Power to you, man. It just wasn't worth the Pirates in that chance right now when we have, we have a full one. So let's piggyback off of that. And the Rich Hill signing that we talked about last week has been announced this week. Interesting, though. I know this doesn't matter, but for whatever reason, it's something that I pay attention to. And there are a few other guys on Twitter that have tweeted at me who have kind of said, like, yeah, I think about this stuff too. He's not going to wear number 44, even though we don't have a number 44, and he's been wearing number 44. He's going to 53. Okay. Just thought that was interesting. We did put up a graphic last week that said 44. Matter of fact, is it still... Yeah, still 44. Yeah. Anyway, it's 53. So interesting. Anyway, in the process, Zach Thompson gets the DFA. So
hold on one second before we go on to this. I do want to bring this up just because it's funny that you brought up the whole number thing. Is it too soon?
Oh,
Justin Turner in Boston is going to wear number 2? That one is intriguing to me.
I don't. Yeah.
I mean, Rich Hill will wear 44 and 53. I don't see any relevant. Like,
who cares?
yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but man, that's bold.
Yeah.
Xander Bogaerts wore number 2 for so many years, and you just roll in your first year, the right after they got rid of him, and you're going to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to wear number 2."
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think it equally interesting from the Red Sox standpoint.
Yeah,
nobody there was like, I don't know if I do that. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe
like, who's
pick
gonna
a different number?
Who's gonna be the first to roll into Pittsburgh and wear 22?
Right. It still hasn't happened.
So,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought.
I'm sure we've all thought the same thing about the number 18 for Van Slyke and Kendall and then even Neil Walker. But we've had a number 18, haven't we? I feel like we have.
Who was? Yeah, we did. I forget who it was.
I feel like we have. Numero 18, John Ryan Murphy. Oh, right. Pedro Flormone right after Walker left. John Neese, John Ryan Murphy, Ben Gamel. Oh, wait. Ben Gamel didn't wear 18 the whole time he was here, did he? Well, how did I not remember that? He wore 18 the entire time he was with the Pirates. That tells you how much I cared about his uniform number. Who was it after Kendall? Jose Hernandez. A bunch of, wow. And it was Kendall after Van Slyke, just a couple years, which probably would have been the same sort of thing. Like, really? It was Bob Walk, then Van Slyke, then Jason Kendall. 18's been a popular number.
Right.
That's like that's a tough 3 guys to follow right there. Okay, anyway. Yeah. I don't think it matters, to be honest with you. I think that just like Ben Gamel wearing number 18 did not faze me, I probably thought about it when he put that jersey on and thought, you're going to wear 18? And then I've already totally forgotten it.
Yeah.
That was the thing. You know what I mean? That's interesting. I don't think maybe 2's not a big deal. Anyway. To keep moving here.
Yep.
Zach Thompson DFA'd for Rich Hills is where we were headed on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that surprises me about this one before I open this up is he still has two options. That's the thing that gets me. You still got 2 options on the guy. I'm just surprised that he's the guy. I mean, I can look through this. I heard people say Dwayne Underwood. If they haven't gotten rid of him and Stevenson yet, they're probably not going to.
Right.
And I think that the fact that Dwayne Underwood and Zach Thompson are both on the major league roster kind of does make you feel like, well, but if they're going to get rid of somebody that's on the major league roster, why wouldn't it be that guy? I think the difference is that you're talking about a reliever and you're talking about a starter. And I think that in the process of this happening, Zach Thompson lost his place on the major league roster.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to be. As of right now, Dwayne Underwood is going to be on that roster opening day. And I still think that Robert Stevenson's going to be, if, like I said, with him probably making around $3 million this year in arbitration, if they haven't gotten rid of him yet, I don't think they plan on it. I think they saw enough last year that they thought, I think we can do something with this arm. I mean, it wasn't all bad for him here.
Right. Sure.
So enough that they're willing to go there with him. And to be honest with you, I really don't hate it. And it's just because of, one main thing. And I know that you're getting into that, so I won't get into it. Me personally, I made the case that it was going to be Ryan Vilade. There's no use in having all these outfielders. Apparently, they just said, you know what? We don't have a path for Zach Thompson. I don't know. Ryan Vilade also has 2 options. So, unfair of me to make that comparison. It was just because there's this overage, and I would think that they would normally want a lot of pitchers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know.
So anyway, where are you at with this? Because I know that you have thoughts here, and I want to give you the space here to go.
Sure, yeah, and I'm not mad at the fact that we DFA'd him, but I do feel like we're starting to pick away a little bit at our depth in the starting pitching. We do have a lot of young depth, but just guys with some experience. I mean, like you said, he had 2 options left, so you could move him up and down. And if a guy goes down, you can bring. If he's pitching well in the minors, I have no problem pulling him up. And I know there's guys that we're ready to start pulling up and getting time, but I don't know. To me, it's just another piece of our depth that's going to be gone.
So just to say here, if you need a start in late April, early May, it's not going to be Mike Burrows. Sorry about that. I did not put do not disturb on my phone or on my computer. Anyway, it's not going to be Mike Burrows.
No.
Like it's not going to be an April, May thing for him. My guess is it's probably not going to be Luis Ortiz. I think they're going to do, we've talked about this 100 times. They're going to do last year's Roanzi with him. They're going to take it easy because they think they've got something there. And I think that's a smart move. You've got to work these guys up to, you can't just start him there and say, okay, you're going to start opening day. You're going to start 33 games. I'd like to see, 175 to 200 innings. You just can't do that.
Right.
Like they'll break down. Not to mention it's your first time going at this in the show, which means you're probably over pitching a little bit at times. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're all big innings when you're young. So those every inning's a high leverage inning when you're young and you're just breaking into the league. He didn't act like it last year in his 5 starts. He did not act like it.
Right.
But they are. They're going to slow roll Ortiz. He might come up in May. He'll go back down if that happens. You know what I mean? It will be short.
Yeah.
So your option is going to be, I think Johan Oviedo is your guy at this point. He's number 1. Mm-hmm. I would have thought if it was early enough, if Johan Oviedo's not pitching well, I don't care how Zach Thompson's pitching. He might have a 6.50 ERA in AAA. He gets the call up to spot start because he's not a part of the future. I don't mind him getting blasted for a game or just taking a waiver. Maybe we can get a good start out of him.
Right.
You know what, Bryce? I just thought of this. Bryce Wilson did get sent down last year. He used his last option last year.
Yeah.
So that I did say that earlier, and it just hit my head that he had done the same thing, and we were like, "Hey, I know it's not going great. Let's just bring him up anyway, and he's going to start this doubleheader, and we're going to be fine with it. Whatever happens, happens. We're not going to, we're not going to break anybody's arm just for a second half of a doubleheader on a year that we're not going to contend for a postseason spot." So I agree with that. But I would have thought that would have been Zach Thompson this year to come up for those spot starts, double headers, or, rain out games or whatever. Now, early in the season, that's usually not an issue unless there's an injury because we have enough days off in April that you're not going to run into that problem. But going into May, I really would have thought that would have been a thing. And I didn't think that, the problem with guys like Ortiz and Oviedo is those guys are going to be fighting to go up and stay up.
Right.
And that's going to be too early in the season for them to do that. Vince Velasquez is going to get some months to see what he can figure out. I think that we understand that.
Yeah.
And so to your point, you tapped into your depth. Oviedo is that guy now.
Yeah, he has to be.
There's nobody else. So who's in the cards of coming up? Oviedo, Ortiz, Burrows eventually. And when I look at this, Priester's not on the 40-man yet.
Well, that's
when
true.
I'm just looking at the 40-man, right? Yeah. Now, sure, they may add Priester or Cody Bolton to the 40-man to do the same sort of thing. But when you do that, there's going to be another move.
Right.
unless there's a 60-day injured list move. So when you're talking about starters, I'm done. Maybe Max Kranick. If they continue down the path of starting pitching for Max Kranick, but I'm pretty sure he's not. Is he going to be healthy for the beginning of the year even?
I'm not sure about that.
I'm pretty sure Max Kranick, when the season starts, will go directly on to that 60-day injured list, which will probably just open up a spot for Tyler Heineman to become a catcher.
Yeah.
Oh, well, not yet. Not yet. We're not there yet. Okay.
No, not
We're
yet.
not there yet. All right. So Zach Thompson is a surprise. I think this is a guy who you probably get a trade in with.
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of be surprised if we got a player for him. And if we do, I would say it's going to be one of those super low minors, 19-year-old guys that you just don't know about. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that would probably be justifiable. I mean, this is nothing. This is literally like a pre-arb. You know what I mean? It could just be the same thing as Bryce Wilson. There's not a lot of leverage here. You're not trading a valuable player. You know what I'm saying? So if you get anybody, chances are you're not getting a person for that. This is going to be another cash deal, or he's going to go through waivers, which I actually would be surprised if it's just a straight up he goes through waivers. If Bryce Wilson can get picked up, I think there's more value from Zach Thompson and from where I'm at.
Yeah.
With that said, I will go against that argument a little bit by saying this team is getting better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And those two guys, funny that these happen back to back this way. Those two guys we've talked about, they cannot be in this rotation if you want this team to be better. Maybe Vince Velasquez ends up being the same type. I think there's a little more upside there because he's done it before, right? Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. It's still worth a try.
Yeah, and I think that's part of where me and you differ a little bit. I think there's just as much upside with Zach Thompson as there is with Vince Velasquez. Zach Thompson pitched to a 3-something ERA in Miami. He's shown that he can do it.
In a short sample, though.
Yeah, 100%. I get that.
At least with Vince Velasquez, there was a little bit of something there throughout his career.
Yeah, and it ultimately got moved to the bullpen as a failed starter.
Yeah, and I pulled up the statistics here. It looks like I only really put last year's statistics on there. I just feel like
I'm not saying that I don't think there's something in Vince Velasquez, because there very well could be. I haven't dug into him all that much, like to actually like go back and watch some film or whatever, on some of his pitches and looking at the life on his pitches and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
but I don't think I think him and Thompson are kind of comparable.
Yeah, I mean, he's never had a season in the threes ERA-wise. He's had a 4.12 is his lowest season, and really it's not much closer. His rookie season in Houston was a short sample, 55-inning things that was 4.37. But I mean, he's a 23-year-old. Mm-hmm. Zach Thompson certainly was very late to the game. He was a big part of a trade coming from Houston into Philadelphia in the I can't remember let me scroll down here. Ken Giles deal, if you remember that. And so there was a lot of like, oh, he was the feature of that trade. And it never really, I mean, he's made 30 starts before. You know what I'm saying? He's made 24, 30, 23 starts, 21 starts, but they haven't necessarily been good. They haven't been good, period. Like, none of these seasons are good seasons. the upside, I guess, is supposed to be there, but I would probably concede that argument.
Are you talking about Velasquez right now? Or
Yeah, I'm talking about
Thompson?
Velasquez. That's what I'm saying. I would probably concede that argument. I was under the assumption that there may have been a season or two that was actually better than, anything. I mean, Zach Thompson, it was just a short sample, but it was there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was there. And it was a 3.24 ERA in 75 innings. It's only 14 starts, still 26 games. But, I mean, last year's 5.18, just not. I don't know. I would concede that. I definitely wouldn't argue with you. I mean, the difference is that Vince Velasquez makes it to the major leagues at 23 years old and Zach Thompson makes it there by the time he's 27. So that does kind of speak to the upside of that thing, but I would still concede that argument. I don't have a leg to stand on. For me to say Vincent Velasquez can be better than Zach Thompson, I don't have a leg to stand on to say that. I think that he can be, but I don't have an argument for it. You know what I mean? So
I mean, you definitely can say you think that he could be better than Zach Thompson for the Pirates.
Zach Thompson doesn't have a pitch that I'm like, yeah, that's the one that you need to get in there.
Right.
Velasquez has more velocity. He's got plus pitches that whatever his deal is. And I feel like I looked into this at one point and I didn't expect to talk about him tonight, so I wasn't thinking about it. But if you can tap that potential, I think there's more there than just depending on the fact that Zach Thompson, if he executes his pitches well and he has good control, that he can work out as a good ground ball pitcher or something. For me, there's just a lot there to go right. And when you don't have that stuff, and maybe that's the same thing from Velasquez. Either way, it's a guy that's getting pushed out by Oviedo or Ortiz or one of these other guys.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, but I just think that they paid him $3 million. They're going to do this for, he's not getting moved until June.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. And maybe he just gets moved to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all it is. Maybe they've said, we'll give you, I'd be surprised if he's not there. If, like I said, it's going to be late June and it's got to be bad in order for him to get moved. And I think the team also has to be doing well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If the team's not doing well, they might say, who cares? We're going to save these arms and wait for injuries to make this move.
Yeah, but I don't know if that'd be the right move. I think I get it. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, save the arm. But I think the right move is to gain experience for these young guys.
Wait a minute, though. Well, I guess the reason I'm laughing is because you expect the right move to be made. The right move doesn't necessarily come into play here when I'm saying what I think is going to happen.
Touche.
We'll talk in June about what the right move is. We will not let that go, but we will also talk about what move is actually being made.
Yeah.
Or not being made, rather.
Yeah.
So, the right move was never signing Yoshi again, and we did it anyway. The right move was not getting Josh Van Meter, and we got Josh Van Meter.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's beside the point. So I will segue that, or you know what? Let's just take a break, and we've got a couple other things to talk about. Let's talk about what's next for this team. Let's talk about where we go from here, and it's quiet, and how quiet it's going to be, and also, like I said, the inevitable. We're going to have to say a few things about Bryan Reynolds and the rumors there. Eventually, like I said, this is going away because either something's going to happen. Well, no, something has to happen in order for us to stop talking about it. Let's take a break, and we'll get right back to it. Thanks for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2 Buctober. Audio podcast available on your favorite podcast platform. Video podcast available on YouTube. Follow us on the socials and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, take a couple minutes for a review. We'll be right back. And we're back here on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. We've been talking about Zach Thompson and the depth and the pitching and all of that stuff. And I think that it doesn't stop there when we talk about what's next. Depth continues to be a thing. And one of those things that you in particular, before we got started, said, we got to do something. And I had mentioned before that, at some point, some move would be made on the 60-day injured list for a catcher for Tyler Heineman to be put on the 40-man. So let's talk about the catcher and what needs to be done and what needs to be done. I know that you brought this up, so I'm going to let you kind of tee off here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at some point we got to add another catcher, and it's got to be somebody like somewhat decent. And there's a few still out there that are on the free agent market. I honestly, like, I know I said this when I first started. I said, I don't even care if it's Gary Sanchez. Like, I don't. But we have to get somebody in the organization that's going to block Heineman.
You would have to believe at this point, Roberto Perez has played some winter ball.
Mm-hmm.
Do we actually have that? Let me see if there's actually numbers on that.
There is, and I looked it up, started looking it up last week, and then I just didn't look anymore into it.
Okay, so the thing is, and I'm pulling it up now, so you're fine.
I know he's not doing well, but I think he's playing.
So he's played in 10 games so far. He has
that's what it
30
was
plate
last
appearances. It doesn't matter how he's done.
No,
honestly, the production does not matter. What the Pirates are looking for is their health.
Mm-hmm.
10 games, I don't know if he's just like getting into games. I mean, it's been a while, right? So you would think he would get eased into games. They want to see how the health is. Do you think, oh yeah, there's still, the word has left me. They're still looking
Injury,
at
lingering.
No, they're like, are they still just looking at
concerned?
that? Or, I wasn't even thinking of that. Like, is it still they're looking at it is literally the word. They're watching this happen. I can't believe that like words are
observing.
Yeah, that's probably the word I was looking for. Are they still just watching to see, is he healthy? Are they allowing this to play out? Or is there concerns? Has the fact that it's not happened yet mean, well, we're still waiting on Perez. So we're not going to jump the gun over here when we told Perez we would wait and see how the health goes for him. If they've previously had a discussion and said, we're going to do this, is that what they're waiting on?
Right.
If so, maybe that's a bit of a gamble. When I look at the free agent list, I mean, right now, that they got Heineman on a minor league deal. He's invited to spring training. When you look at the list, there's not, like, you're not going to bring in Gary Sanchez and say, we're going to bring you in here. We still might sign Roberto Perez and all yins are going to battle for those two spots. I don't think Gary Sanchez signs that.
Right.
I don't think Jorge Alfaro signs that. Sandy Leon. None of these guys are going to really sign up to compete for a spot maybe compete for a starting role, but not to compete for a spot. This isn't going to be,
right.
We're just going to invite you to spring. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
That's not signing you to a major league deal. That's a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. And I don't think that's what Roberto Perez is expecting either. Any of these guys that sign are going to say, no, you sign me to a major league deal, and if you want to cut me, you're still going to pay me.
Right.
That's one thing, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to sign up for that. And
and I wouldn't expect them to.
No. And so I guess my only thing is maybe that's what they're waiting on. It doesn't change what you're bringing up. I feel like something needs to happen because sooner or later, and you bring up Gary Sanchez, and I brought up Jorge Alfaro right there because he's the guy that I would target in this. Either way, you're going to have to come up with something. If it's Roberto Perez, it's Roberto Perez, and you need to make it happen, or you need to say, we got a timeline on this. And then I would be reaching out, and maybe they are. We don't know what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Right.
reaching out to the guys that you and I are suggesting or somebody else. There's not a big list here. We got Luis Torrens, Sandy Leon, Kevin Plawecki, and Robinson Chirinos, who's 39 years old. So maybe that's where they'll go. I mean, we've got Santana and Rich Hill. I mean, let's just go. We're the youngest and the oldest in the league at this point.
Just balancing out that average.
Balancing out. I mean? Yep.
No, I mean, I'd be fine. I'd be okay if they signed Sanchez or all these are ors, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
Sanchez, Perez, Leon, Alfaro. I'd be fine with any of them.
Yeah.
Any of those four are going to block Heineman.
And that's the goal, right? Because you want to say there's some sort of improvement that's made. And so are they letting this thing go to spring so that they can put a guy on the 60-day injured list so that they can open up that spot? You know what I mean? Right. Something like that. Is there a situation like that? And I still don't know. And if any of the listeners know, and I'll probably look this up after we record, I'm just not going to pause it and record about Max Kranick and his status and whether or not that's a guy that gets added to that list or not. I think I remember Colin Holderman is going to be healthy, but maybe he's another candidate to be added to that list. I think when I look down through, everyone else should be healthy. Those were my only two question marks because they both ended the season on the injured list, right? So I don't know.
Didn't De Los Santos end the year on the injured list?
That's possible too, but I thought I had heard that. So he's another guy, right? I thought I'd heard that he was going to be fine. So maybe that's another arm that is possibly on the injured list at the start. Hot take there. I think De Los Santos doesn't start the year on the roster. I think they slow roll that one too. I think he doesn't. I think they slow roll that one too because of the injury. And because I think that there's enough guys here that they could put a bullpen together without him. And I think that he comes up a little bit later. Maybe it's not so hot. Maybe everybody listening says, yeah, I think so too. Maybe not. I don't know. You just brought in two lefties. Jose Hernandez has to be on the roster. You got Harleen Garcia. So you've got your two lefties. And then you've got, let me see. We got to have 13, right? So that's 5. That's 7. So we're at 7, and you've got Will Crow, Chase DeYoung. I'm going down through. Stevenson and Underwood. And there's only 2 more spots after that. So Johan Ramirez, Johan Oviedo, Dowry Moretta, which I think he'll start down as well.
You haven't even named Bednar yet.
Oh, Bednar, right. Thanks. So there's only one spot available in that case. And that's between Colin Holderman, Dowry Moretta, Johan Oviedo. You don't have a long man in that, so Johan Oviedo could be that, to be a long man, unless you're considering Will Crow, which hopefully you're considering Will Crow as your long man, or even Dwayne Underwood. To be honest, I think that's where they're best used. But like Colin Holderman, Johan Ramirez, like there's guys, right, that you could put in that outside of Yuri De Los Santos, which is why I think they slow roll him and get him back.
I could see that happening.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for that. I actually was where I was scrolled. Bednar was off the screen, and Brubaker was my top guy. So I just was looking down through and didn't see him. But yeah, so to me, it's got to be, there's got to be a resolution somewhere. You've got to get a catcher in every other aspect this offseason, in most other aspects this offseason that you said. First base, you said, I'm fixing first base. You went out and you got major league first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
And then pitching, you said, we're going to sign 2 starting pitchers. They literally signed 2 starting pitchers. Right. And sure, they didn't sign Verlander, but the point is they went out and they said, these are the guys that we got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying like, they did what they could so we could compete. No, but they did make improvements in every position that they tried to improve.
Yeah.
And catcher is the last one. You got Austin Hedges, but that's a mixed bag. I don't hate it. I like it. Right. I think that he provides value, especially for the pitching staff. But at some point, we've got to also help the catching spot out at the plate,
Right.
not just
Yep.
behind it. So I think there needs, and maybe none of these guys do that. Maybe Roberto Perez doesn't do that. Maybe Jorge Alfaro doesn't do that. Either way, we know catching is weak right now, but we also know that Endy and Henry are not far.
Right.
I think that we will see Endy this year. Now, I say think because, as I say about all this stuff, we can project and we can say this guy is this and that. Execution has to happen. So if Endy plays and he continues to execute, then we'll see him this summer. I don't know if we will Henry Davis, even if he's good. I'm not convinced. If we've got guys there and he's not on the 40-man, there's no reason for them to necessarily push him.
Right.
To be honest with you, if they feel like defense has work, what if they end up moving him to first base?
Yeah.
Then that means there's more time that they'll keep him down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got any thoughts on that? Just quick, not to go deep into it.
I mean, they easily. I mean, they could. They don't have any reason to add him if the guys at the major league level are getting the job done, and we're not competing, or we're not competing. I guess not but then he could just break camp from opening day next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get the idea. I think
if he's ready,
if he's ready,
we don't need to.
So he's been injured. I still think there's something he's got to prove there. I still think there's something he has to prove there in order to say, I'm the guy. I think he'll hit.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I just think right now I just don't know what this catching position is going to look like down the road. And I'm not even I'm not going to go down that road in this conversation. All I'm saying is I'm not sure. And I'm allowing this thing to play out a little bit because I don't really know. I'm not watching these guys catch. I can look at their stat sheet and see that they got good hitting numbers, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's still something to be proven there. And
can't see the intangibles.
No, and you also can't, and that's part of it too, because I could even say well, the catching numbers aren't good either. But if he's great with a staff, is there some give and take there? If they end up going to a robo umpire, what's it matter how good he catches?
Right.
I don't care about framing anymore if they have fake umpires. You know what I'm saying? If he can throw and he can hit and he can block, that's literally it.
Yeah.
And we know he can throw and we assume he can hit. Throwing doesn't change what level you're at. You can either throw or you can't. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Blocking probably doesn't even change what level you're at. Literally hitting is, depending on the people against you. But anyway, we don't know what the catching position looks like. And I think a lot of people are dead set on the fact that Endy will show up at some point this year. But I just don't know. He's barely been in AAA. They've made this precedence before. We understand the window is what the window is. And as I go into this next topic, I think this is going to play. And I'll go ahead and start it off because we only have about a little more than 10 minutes left, right? And if we're going to stick to our hour instead of, rambling. Did you have anything left on the catcher before I segue here?
Nah, you're good.
No, we're good. Okay. If Bryan Reynolds gets traded, the timeline changes for the Pirates. I don't think there's any way around it. If you think that the Pirates are going to start competing, now I'm not saying playoffs necessarily, but the fact is they should be better, significantly better in 2024, playing around with that 500 mark, which coincidentally somewhat gets you towards with the extra playoff team, but not even talking about that, showing real signs of being a better baseball team. And a competitive baseball team. And there's been a couple extra monies spent. If Bryan Reynolds is dealt, I don't see that team. I see pieces of it, but that is a huge hole.
It is.
That you have to fill.
Yep.
And the problem is the rumors are that they're looking for a starting pitcher. That's not going to help this outfield with a lot of question marks in it. I love Jack Sawinski. I root for him to do good. He's got a lot to prove.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He is, for me, a third or fourth outfielder right now. If he can put some power numbers together, I like him as a third outfielder or fourth outfielder because I like putting that power in there. I believe the power is real.
Yeah.
But the rest of it has to, and he's good defensively, so I have no problem putting him in a game.
Right.
But there's still something left to be proven, right? I could see this guy going down a path of like a Jock Peterson. But there has to be improvement in the like Jock Peterson gets on base. You know what I'm saying? And so like there's part of it there that still needs to happen as far as that goes. And Jock Peterson has his faults, which is why I say I kind of see that. You know, the lefty is a little bit of a struggle. The strikeouts maybe get out of hand and the average is down, but Peterson still gets on base. And so I think there's that. And I could see Sawinski end up being that player, which is maybe not your cornerstone player, but a great player to have on your team.
Mm-hmm.
You still need two other guys. And right now, Bryan Reynolds is another one. And all we're doing as a Pirate fan and as an organization is saying, who takes that last spot? Because we don't have someone for it. And we're looking for someone. There's someone out there we could sign. And his name is Andrew McCutchen. I've said it 2 weeks in a row now. And we're not going to harp on this and talk about it for 5 minutes, but we're both on the same page. Just do it. Yeah. Stop. There's a lot of question marks. That makes the team better. If he ends up being a fourth outfielder, if he DHs a lot, but he could play left or right field.
Yeah.
And be home and give us a win.
Yep.
As you said, I think you said, if Reynolds gets traded, they have to do it.
Yeah.
But I say they can do it even before. But either way, if they don't, that's fine. If they don't see a path, if they like what they have, I understand. Whatever. They're not going to just make that move. But if the trade happens, this timeline changes for me because they're not getting an outfielder in return, according to what the rumors are. Unless they get a major league ready outfielder and it's not Jared Kelenic, he's not ready. He's another Jack Sawinski. Yeah, he's another Jack Sawinski to me. He's a Miguel Andujar. He's just a guy who could possibly prove. That's what he is to me.
Yeah.
I don't see that. You're getting rid of Kanan Smith and Jigma or Cal Mitchell or whatever if you bring him in. Because he's the same as all those guys. It's just another left-handed bat that has potential to do something more.
Yeah, and I don't like that either. I wouldn't like that move either. But it's still, as far as the timeline goes, it really does 100% depend on the return that you would get for Reynolds. Because you're going to get a top of the, I don't want to say upper half of the rotation starter.
No, I mean, if they trade him now, it's ace.
Yeah, they were looking for an ace.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that there's an ace out there that anybody has that they're willing to part ways with.
Right. It'd be the Dodgers, right?
In my opinion, you just keep a hold of him.
Right.
You just don't trade him.
100%. I could trade him for a number 2 next year.
Yeah. But the Marlins have a ton of pitching down there, and they've already made the claim that, hey, we're willing to part ways with one of 4 of our starting pitchers who are starting in the major leagues already. That being like Pablo Sanchez, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers, and Jesus Luzardo.
Is it Pablo Sanchez?
I don't think so, but that's what you have on the notes. So that's what I read. It's Pablo Lopez.
It's Pablo Lopez.
Excelente. Adios, señor pelota.
Adios, señor pelota.
Yeah.
If you guys know backyard baseball, I wrote Pablo Sanchez down. Wait, hold on a second. We got this. Because we have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with this move.
Yeah, this is here. There's Pablo Sanchez for everybody watching the YouTube. My hero, Pablo Sanchez. I absolutely love this. I love the backwards hat one.
Yeah.
That's the one I should have had open from the very beginning. Excelente.
Used him all the time.
Everybody did.
But yeah, so those four guys have been made available, and they're all four good starting pitchers. I don't see any of them being an ace.
No, and that's the thing. What do we have right now? We've got a list of guys whose ceilings, unless something changes and their trajectory goes up, which is certainly possible. But what you have is a list of guys. If everything goes right, I could see Keller. And I'm already going to blank. I could see Keller, Roanzi, and then Priester, Burrows, and then someone else from that list, whether it's Oviedo, whether it's Ortiz, which I would think it's Ortiz from what I saw last year. I'm really high on him right now. It could be Bolton. It could be one of these other guys could step up and we could say, we've got a good rotation here. None of them are an ace.
Right.
But we have five.
I think you're selling Priester a little short though, because I do believe they think that he's an ace type guy.
Yes, and there are some people who don't.
Yeah.
So
mixed reviews on
there's a little bit of, but what I'm saying is, unless something changes right now, unless something changes and his stock starts skyrocketing, right? And it could. I see what you're saying, but he's 22 now. He'll probably find his way to this team this year if there's a path. They'll add him and he'll find his way.
Mm-hmm.
But if he does, it's not till late. But either way, what I'm saying is, let's say he's on my list as one of those like number 2 guys. And if I see him, who I project as a number 2 guy, along with Keller, along with Contreras, and then I've got Burrows as like a number 3 guy, and Ortiz to me is a wild card. He's exciting to me, but I just don't know yet, right? I have to say, I'm excited and I like what I see, but what I'm saying is if that's your guys, right? Or if it ends up being somebody else, but if that's your guys, then this is a rotation full of 2s and 3s. Without a JT Brubaker, who I kind of say is like a 4, probably 5 kind of pitcher. That's a good rotation full of good pitchers. You just don't have that ace, which if I want to take a flashback to our 3 playoff seasons in a row, that's what we were. We didn't have it. Garrett Cole pitched like an ace for one of those seasons. And we obviously know that Garrett Cole is an ace. And we always knew he was going to be.
Right.
But AJ Burnett at that point was not. Francisco Liriano was not. He may have been our aces, but when you look around the league and say, what's an ace? You can still be really good with a team full of 2s and 3s. And I'm not even sure that we were 5 deep in those years of actual like 2s and 3s. Like Jeff Locke was never a 2.
No.
You know what I mean? And even when he was really good, you kind of always knew he was playing at his absolute best.
Yeah.
And I think Charlie Morton during that time, he's really playing as a 3. And so like, yeah, we were close, but we weren't, but we didn't have that guy. There was a question who was going to start some of those games. When you have an ace, there's no question.
No.
It's Kershaw. It's DeGrom. It's Verlander. It's Scherzer. And yes, there are teams that have 2 aces because we're talking about caliber. We're not talking about actually who's my number 1.
Right.
So I'm sorry. This is a long way to get to 1 point. I think sometimes if you just get a bat, wouldn't you rather go with 5 number 2s or 3s than have that ace and be missing the offense? Jacob deGrom will tell you yes, because what good was it to have deGrom for those years that he was phenomenal and got no run support?
Right.
And King Felix won a Cy Young and won 10 games? 11 games?
Yeah, and DeGrom's was worse than that.
So the thing
I think
is
DeGrom
like,
only won 8 games.
yeah, and I'm not saying that if things work out, I'm not saying we're going to be maybe that bad, but like we could. And I just don't know that. And maybe I'm off base here. I mean, you're a pitching guy. Maybe I'm off base here. Maybe the ace is that important. But if it is, how far away is he? You know what I mean?
Right.
We're not getting Sandy Alcantara showing up here tomorrow because we traded Bryan Reynolds. Like that's not going to happen. We're not trading away Mike Trout.
Right.
We're trading away Bryan Reynolds, which that's not a knock on Bryan Reynolds, right? To say Mike Trout.
For sure. Right.
I just wonder if, an outfielder isn't a better move for our needs. Or a first baseman, Tristan Casas. I mean, once again, you just don't know. You don't know if those guys work out too. So what's it matter? The thing about trading a proven veteran or proven major league player, in his case, not really a veteran, and getting a prospect in return is you're getting a little bit of a lottery ticket no matter which way about it. But at the same time, is not every player a lot? I mean, like we've watched bad contracts happen. Mm-hmm. Robinson Cano did not work out.
Right.
Chris Davis did not work out, and that was an extension.
Right.
So no matter what you do, it's a lottery ticket. Baseball's hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot going on in my head with this that I'm like, I just think you need to get a big return. I don't know that it has to be
specific.
But if it's another number 2 or number 3 starter, I think what's the point? Get a bat. I guess that's where I'm at. And I think that's where the Pirates are at when it comes to pitching. If it's not a number 1 guy, then what am I going to do with all my 2s and 3s that I've got waiting?
Right.
You better be trading him for an outfielder. You know what I'm saying?
But
now you lose depth. But now you lose depth. So there's just a lot.
Which we've already talked about.
Which we've already talked about. So there's a lot there. And the last thing I want to say here, we're at time here. The last thing I want to say is the report came out with John Heyman. This is the conversation that everybody's having this week. The report clearly says over 75 million. And I love all the talking baseball and the John Boy stuff. Like I pay attention to that stuff. I watch those podcasts. The Chris Rose stuff is great. I love all the stuff he's doing. I was a big Intentional Talk fan, so naturally I just migrated with him. And so there's a lot of good things, and it's fine. They're Yankees fans. They overlooked a word. And they just flat out said 6 years, 75 million is what they offered him. That's not how it worked. The problem with it is even though that their stuff, they pay attention. So even though their stuff a lot of times is accurate, check it out. Just check it out. Just read the article. I read that article. I don't pay for the New York Post. I read the article. It said over. It also said that Reynolds Camp was looking at the Olsen deal, which is 8 years, 168. We know from a previous report that they were 50 million apart. Just do some figuring in your head. 75 and 168 are not 50 million apart. Somewhere there had to be moves. Now, Reynolds Camp did say we weren't quite as high as Olsen. So they weren't at 168. Does that mean they were at 167? We didn't do that, right? We didn't say he wants 168 because it says in there they were a little bit lower than that. So if they're a little bit lower than that and we're over what they said, here's how this happens. Yeah, we offered him some things. It was around 6 years and he wants 8 years. I figured that out from conversation, right? And then somebody says, was it 75? And they said, no, it was more than that. So they wrote over 75 because that's all they have.
Right.
And then that conversation turns into they offered him 75. If you want to say they offered him 6 years, 76 million because you're a pessimist and that's what you think, I won't argue you there. I'll say you're probably off, but because there's no way that Bryan Reynolds Camp came in at 120.
Right.
That's not 168. That's not a comparison to 168 to me. Which is why I tweeted out, and my guess is it was somewhere around 100 million, somewhere around 150. Give or take 10, one way or the other. The difference is Reynolds, the big thing that we should have been paying attention to is Reynolds quoted a contract that had an 8 in there. And the Pirates had a contract offer that had a 6 in there. They're 2 years off. And when you say that, if you tell me that there's 2 years tacked on to the offer that Reynolds wants that's different than the Pirates offer, they wanted 2 years, $25 million each, then I'm a little bit nervous about paying Reynolds $25 million for his age 35 and 36 seasons as well. I'm not going to defend the Pirates here. I think that they probably should just offer him the money. Whatever he's asking for to go through age 36, just give it to him.
Yeah. Front load it.
You can do whatever you want with it. You front load it for sure. I don't care about that though. What I care about is if your window is going to be 24 and beyond, Reynolds has to be a part of that team.
I think Reynolds
understand.
wants to be a part of that team.
I understand. Yes, I think so too. I understand. I think Reynolds wants to know where he's going to be. I think that's his thing.
Yeah.
I think that's why he wants 8 years. And that's why when he felt like he wasn't going to get 8 years, forget the total money. When he wasn't going to get 8 years, he said, trade me so I can go somewhere where I can get the 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. My kids are young. I want to take my boots off somewhere and leave them there. And I want to know that that's where I'm going to be for my career. I don't want to be moving around. He doesn't seem like a guy who really wants to go to free agency and play that game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think he wants to know. And that's fine. I don't know. Give him the 8 years. Figure something out. Give him the 8 years so that your window doesn't change. And I know that there's a no trade clause going to be thrown in there. If that's what he wants, there's going to be a no trade clause in there, right? You're not going to trade him. So you're going to have to pay him through the whole thing. I'm going to tell you right now, by the time he's 35 and 36, baseball will be different. Your revenue will be different. You will be able to afford 20 to 25 million in those 2 years at that time.
Yeah.
The same as you're able to afford 10 million right now, 15 million right now. You'll be able to afford that. Nothing happens where it goes down. It's going to continue to go up. Sorry. It was more than 75 and get it done. Yes, he requested a trade. Yes. But I guarantee you, I guess I can't guarantee you. I don't know. I would venture to say that if you went back and said, you know what, we got your terms here. We're going to figure it out because we want you. You tell me he's not going to just change his mind? Apparently he wanted to be in Pittsburgh and then he said, trade me. So he's changed his mind once. He'll change it again. All you got to do is get to 8 years.
Yep.
And be close with the money. Inhale, exhale. Over 75 million, guys. Just read and it all goes away. And if you want to say 76, I won't have a problem with it. I'll think you're wrong, but I won't have a problem with it. The fact is when you show up with a lie, I mean, misunderstanding, whatever you want to call it, a non-truth, then I can't give benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So I'll stop there. I don't like to, confrontation's not my thing. But I couldn't go without saying it. We have to go one step further and we have to read, especially as Pirate fans, because people will take opportunities to meme the Pirates because that's the thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this culture does right now is they take opportunities when they're there to meme it. And the Pirates right now are a target. We're not the only target. There's other targets, but that's a target and they're going to take it. Any chance they get. And I'm not saying that's what John Boy was doing at all, but other people, they are. It's just, I know we're going over. I need to stop. The Braves are smart when they do it. The Pirates are a laughing stock when they offer it, but they didn't offer it. They offered more than that. Murphy just got 6 years, 73, and everybody said, how are they so smart? Ronald Acuna is making what, 17 million for his most in the terms of his contract?
Yeah, something like that.
They're smart. Whatever. And I'm not even going to disagree with it. That the fact that they're smart. That's not my argument. My argument is that you say they're smart while saying the Pirates are cheap for offering the same amount of money that Sean Murphy just got. I think Reynolds is a better player than Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy's best WAR season is 3.5. He just had it. Reynolds has had 2 seasons higher than that, including one that was a 6.0. So Reynolds is clearly, some people will say catcher's more important. That's fine. Reynolds is better. He's more productive.
Right.
So certainly the price goes up. And when you look at the numbers between him and Matt Olson had another year and he's got more pop, has had more pop throughout his career. So, but admittedly saying they were below that. Hey guys, this is episode 100.
Yay.
So thanks for listening. If you guys are listening and you keep hitting play on this thing, I appreciate that. Jake appreciates that.
Absolutely.
And you know what I mean? In this world of putting your thoughts out on the internet, a lot of people do that. And when things aren't, when you don't see some sort of response, you end up stopping to share your opinions and your thoughts on the internet. And, you know, for those of you who keep coming back and hitting play, and for those that are just now coming and hitting play and my goodness, have made it to this point in the episode, like this is why we continue to do this and we continue to enjoy sharing our discussions. So we don't know, you know, more than most of you guys. So the fact that you guys keep, you know, talking back to us and hanging out with us here on the show, we appreciate it. It's kind of cool. Episode 100. I've wanted to do a podcast for 4 years before I ever hit record. And so for me to actually get there and do that, and for you guys to pay attention to it, that's a really cool thing. And I appreciate it. So episode 100. I don't know why, like the milestones do kind of feel cool, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially coming into this one saying like, this is our episode 100 and I don't know what we're going to talk about.
It was a struggle to hit
what the heck is
tonight.
going on? You know what I mean? I told somebody a few days ago, you know, last year's off season, it was our first off season and we had the lockout. We never had a shortage of things to talk about.
Right.
Or at least we never had a shortage of things to complain about. Even when there wasn't news, we sure could complain about there not being any news.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes this stuff, we end up repeating things that we've already talked about on a previous episode, and maybe there's new information, maybe there's not, but either way, appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Appreciate all you guys.
So next week, you know what? Arbitration numbers need to be submitted this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't actually talk about that, but there you go. There you go with Underwood and Stevenson. There were 2 of those guys and others, but you know, we just talked about those 2. So next week we'll react to that if that information is out there on what kind of arbitration numbers exist and things like that, or if anybody avoided arbitration by signing that 1-year deal, which hopefully we've got some news next week that there's some arbitration guys that are avoiding. There are guys avoiding arbitration. So do you have anything else here before we close it out?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!